Okay, I've just listened to the latest ramblings of Keir Starmer, and again, he hasn't in any way started to think about why this is happening, which in itself is interesting. Here's my take on where we go next from this. The first thing is we need to stop the violence as much as we can. We need those of us on the internet that can influence need to be proactive in trying to get people to stop the violence. And there's a very simple way to do this. It's not complicated. These situations blow up because the country is like a pressure cooker. There's been pressure building for years. The trigger was the absolute abhorrent mass murder of 3 children and the attempted mass murder of 10 others last Monday. We still, and how quickly people have forgotten about that. However, we need to think about how we stop people going out and getting themselves locked up for goodness knows how long. And I think there's a very simple way to do that. And it's not calling for less protests, it's calling for more protests. However, those protests need to be absolutely peaceful. They need to be done with discipline. They need to be done exactly like the celebrations have been done that we've had. The past 2 events that we had for the movement have been absolutely fantastic, totally peaceful. So people, yes, absolutely need to protest. The protests need to be widespread. They need to be across the whole of the country, but they have to be lawful and they have to be peaceful. It is your right as a British citizen. Freedom of assembly, freedom of movement, freedom of speech, freedom to protest, all of those things are your right. And I would call on every single British person that's incensed about the way the government's been behaving to come together, form little groups around the country autonomously, come together and go and do peaceful protests throughout the country. Because that will help de-escalate. If people have got a focus, somewhere to go and organise, somewhere to meet with people who share their values and share their goals, and protest against what the government is doing and the way the government is treating the British people. To me, Keir Starmer has declared war on the British people, on patriotic, nationalistic, Britain-loving Brits. That's what he's done. And my appeal to everyone is to not back down in terms of protest, but to make sure nobody throws a brick, nobody throws a bottle, nobody gets involved in violence. De-escalate violence. If good people are on the streets, then bad people can't take control. So my call is good people, go to protests, stand together, men and women, kids. We did it on Saturday, totally spontaneously. Nobody organised it. It was somebody put a post up on social media and it went viral. And before you knew it, there's 400 or 500 people in my town having a peaceful, totally legitimate, respectful protest. Because the problem is if we don't do it the right way, then the men of violence take control. And the other thing is, there's a lot of people condemning people going out and people being angry. The politics of condemnation get us absolutely nowhere. We've seen it in Northern Ireland. Politics of condemnation do not work. Do I condemn violence? Absolutely. Do I condemn people going out peacefully protesting? No, because I'm one of them. And I will be going out and peacefully protesting again. And this government will not stop me exercising my right to freedom of speech and freedom to protest. We will not be demonised by Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer has blood on his hands. Keir Starmer has poured petrol on the fire. And I believe Keir Starmer is inciting racial hatred by the way he's behaving. He's terrifying the Muslim community. Nobody I've spoken to wants to go out and attack Muslims. Nobody I've spoken to wants to cause a riot. People want to peacefully protest. And that's what I'm calling for. Right now, I'm calling for peaceful protests up and down the length of the United Kingdom and in Ireland as well. Why not? Mass peaceful protests in every city, every town, every village. And it needs to happen. It's up to you guys. You don't need leadership. You just need sensible people in those communities who can lead those peaceful protests and stand for what is right and stand against the totalitarianism that Keir Starmer is now unleashing on the British people. Get out there, have peaceful protests, but do not get involved in any violence.